Now we have the latest release in the Twitter files, this time coming from Barry Weiss. Elon Musk has been releasing more and more information, and today we have leaked communications, which I believe it's the biggest bombshell yet. Now, of course, we knew because of a lawsuit out of Missouri and previous reporting we've seen from a variety of individuals, and we did see a big story from The Intercept, that federal law enforcement was directly accessing Facebook, Twitter, probably YouTube, in order to censor key information. What we learned from the Twitter files was that they were having regular communications. Now, that is a major bombshell and may actually be criminal. I'll pull up 18 U.S. Code 242 in a bit during the segment. But what Elon Musk showed us was the internal communications as to what was going on around that. We did kind of know something like that was happening because of the Missouri lawsuit. Good job to the AG in Missouri, as well as the Gateway Pundit. Now we actually have, and this one I think is big. The team at Twitter, internal communications, outright saying Trump broke no rules. But how do we ban him? This one's amazing. The internal communications show that employees were discussing amongst themselves how to ban Trump, knowing he broke no rules, and how they could try to desperately justify that something he did in fact break the rules. What did they come up with? Okay, he didn't incite anybody to violence. He didn't actually tell anybody to do anything. He didn't support anything on January 6th. But he did say the word patriots. And if you take this narrow interpretation that patriot refers to January 6th, well then, that proves it. And that was their justification. I pulled up the initial announcement, the original announcement from Twitter when they did take Trump down. And in it, they are very, very careful not to say that Trump directly broke their incitement rules. They say risk of further incitement and additional violations. Why? Because internally they knew Trump broke no rules. Now think about what that means for someone like Donald Trump, who's particularly litigious, or at least very much threatens to sue people. It means that internally there was an actual malice standard. If they came out and said Trump did violate incitement to violence, but internally they all said no, he didn't, well, that's going to be a very interesting discovery. So they said, oh, well, glorification it is. And that's what they put on their webpage. That's what they put on their blog. Glorification of violence through some ridiculous interpretation. The reason I'm doing this segment live is that Barry Weiss is currently going through. The thread is not yet done, but we're learning something massive. The effect on the world of banning Trump was massive. The ripple effects. Even Parag Agrawal, the later CEO after Jack, said that this is going to have ripple effects, and we need to discuss this. The era of centralized moderation is over. World leaders were outraged, saying we cannot allow an American businessman and private entity to shut down our voices in our own countries. It's become too powerful. More importantly, however, provided by Barry Weiss is the context surrounding Donald Trump's ban, which most of you already know. Other world leaders were directly calling for death. They were calling for the death of some people, even in their own countries and enemies. And Twitter employees seemingly had no problem with this. The double standard was real. Now, of course, an astute observer knew all of this. And I see people say this often. Yeah, we knew this, so what? And many of the establishment and Democrat-aligned media are trying to play the game of, yeah, well, we all knew this. No, we quote unquote knew this. We, the astute observers, put two and two together. It's not even as hard as a Sudoku puzzle. We figured it out. When the Ayatollah is tweeting, when communist Chinese party members are tweeting, but Trump tweets, you ban him. We get it. But we need those receipts. And now we got them. I'm excited for this Twitter files, my friends, because as you know, I've been whinging on Twitter about these Saturday evening releases, these Friday releases. The story is dying. Well, it just so happens we got a banger bombshell Monday afternoon. Now that is perfect timing. That means that we can rip through these communications and drop them into everybody's lap right when they're going for lunch and they got time to skim the news. This is great. It means that Monday morning, the cycle is being set. They lied. Now, I got to wonder if there is some kind of conspiracy here. And I mean a legal, literal conspiracy. Because behind the scenes, they're attempting to justify the termination of his account. There's got to be some kind of contract violation or potential, maybe actual malice. Maybe there's something Trump can do. If there's internal arguments about whether or not this is glorification, maybe Trump still could argue they knew it wasn't, and they were trying to justify it. Maybe. So let's go through the thread, break down the news, get in your super chats. I'll try and read as many as I can as we do this segment live today. And I hope you're all having a wonderful Christmas season. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, we'll be up at Turning Point USA in Phoenix. Hope to see many of you there. It's going to be very fun and exciting. Before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com. Become a member in order to support our work directly. As a member, you'll get access to exclusive segments on the Timcast IRL podcast, as well as all of our other shows like the Cast Castle vlog, Tales from the Inverted World. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. And in this segment, get into your super chats. I'll try and read as many of your comments as possible. I think because we've got a breaking live story here, your input is going to be invaluable. So get in your super chats and highlight things that we may be missing. This story is actively breaking right now on Twitter. So let's just get into it. We got Barry Weiss coming in at 1 p.m. The Twitter Files Part 5, the removal of Trump from Twitter. Now we'll skip through a bit of that exposition and just get to the point. She says, 6:46 a.m., Trump tweets, with one remaining strike, the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. Now take note of this. 75 million great American patriots. Who is he referring to? Simply put, he was referring to people who voted for him. That's all. Let's carry on. It's 744. To all those who asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. This was on January 8th. Weiss says for years, Twitter had resisted calls, both internal and external, to ban Trump on the grounds that blocking a world leader from the platform or removing their controversial tweets would hide important information that people should be able to see in debate. They said, quote, our mission is to provide a forum that enables people to be informed and to engage their leaders directly, the company wrote in 2019. Twitter's aim was to protect the public's right to hear from their leaders and to hold them to account. But after January 6th, as Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberg have documented, pressure grew both inside and outside of Twitter to ban Trump. There were dissenters inside Trump, quote, maybe because I am from China, said one employee on January 7th. I deeply understand how censorship can destroy the public conversation. Barry says, but voices like that one appear to have been a distinct minority within the company. Across Slack channels, many Twitter employees were upset that Trump hadn't been banned earlier. After January 6th, Twitter employees organized to demand their employer ban Trump. Quote, there was a lot of employee advocacy happening, said one Twitter employee. Full stop, right there. January 6th, before Trump tweeted anything, employees had already begun lobbying the company to ban Donald Trump. Tweet 10, quote, we have to do the right thing and ban this account, said one staffer. It's pretty obvious he's going to try to thread the needle of incitement without violating the rules. And this is January 8th. They say that last sentence, we have to do the right thing here and ban this account. I said it 3 times. We don't have a good track record of acting on his account, except in the clearest and most explicit of cases. And even then, they say, in my opinion, extraordinary circumstances demand extraordinary leadership. It took 3 years, but I've lost faith, et cetera, et cetera. In the early afternoon of January 8th, the Washington Post published an open letter signed by over 300 Twitter employees to CEO Jack Dorsey demanding Trump's ban. Quote, we must examine Twitter's complicity in what President-elect Biden has rightly termed insurrection, a political term, not a legal one, mind you. But the Twitter staff assigned to evaluate tweets quickly concluded that Trump had not violated Twitter's policies. Quote, I think we'd have a hard time saying this is incitement, wrote one staffer. It's pretty clear he's saying the American patriots are the ones who voted for him and not the terrorists. We can call them that, right? From Wednesday. Another staffer agreed. Don't see the incitement angle here. Even among a group of people who desperately wanted to remove a sitting president from social media, they could not do it. Here's what they said. I see redacted, an individual, has pinged us to ask about incitement for the DJT tweet and want to see if we can align. I don't see the incitement of fear. What PC could it be trying to incite fear about? And it says it 3 times. I wonder if that's just due to it being edited. It's not actually being said 3 times. I think we'd have a hard time saying this is incitement. It's pretty clear he's saying the American patriots are the one who voted for him. Yeah, it is. Quote, I am also not seeing clear or coded incitement in the DJT tweet. Annika Navaroli says, I'll respond in the elections channel and say that our team has assessed and found no vios for the Donald Trump one. That's no violations. Flagging that Yoel is looking for an assessment of the DJT tweet. She does say that as an FYI, safety is assessed the Trump tweet above and determined there is no violation of our policies at this time. Let that sink in. They reviewed it. They said no violations. How then did it escalate? Later, Navaroli would testify to the House January 6th committee, quote, for months I had been begging and anticipating and attempting to raise the reality that if we made no intervention into what I saw occurring, people were going to die. Yet for some reason, when it came to the actual internal communications, Annika says, no, nothing wrong here. Next, Twitter's safety team decides that Trump's 7:44 a.m. tweet is also not in violation. They are unequivocal. It's a clear no violation. It's just to say he's not attending the inauguration. There's nothing else there. Here we go. Barry Weiss, bringing the receipt, says, to understand Twitter's decision to ban Trump, we must consider how Twitter deals with other heads of state and political leaders, including in Iran, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. Now, to that extent, I will not read the entirety of the tweets from these individuals. Why? Because they are overt calls for violence and death. But you get the point. Barry says, in June of 2018, Iran's Ayatollah Ali Khamenei tweeted, Israel is a malignant, you get the point, in the West Asian region, and then he calls for their removal and eradication, saying that it's even possible it will happen. Twitter neither deleted the tweet nor banned the Ayatollah. More than that, there's no flag on it. Is there anything here saying that this should not be allowed? It's amazing. 2020, October. The former Malaysian prime minister said it was a right for Muslims to, and then he goes on to say that they have a right to harm French people. Twitter deleted this tweet for glorifying violence, but he remains on the platform. The tweet below was taken from the Wayback Machine. Muhammadu Buhari, the president of Nigeria, incited violence against pro-Biafra groups. Those of us in the fields for 30 months who went through the war, he wrote, will treat them in the language they understand. Twitter deleted the tweet, but it didn't ban him. In October of 2021, Twitter allowed Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to call on citizens to take up arms against the Tigray region. Twitter allowed the tweet to remain up and did not ban the prime minister. Yet Donald Trump, we get it. We know. But hey, let me go through the receipts for you. In early February 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government threatened to arrest Twitter employees in India and to incarcerate them for up to 7 years after they restored hundreds of accounts that had been critical of him. Twitter did not ban Modi. But Twitter executives did ban Trump, even though key staffers said that Trump had not incited violence, not even in a coded way. Less than 90 minutes after Twitter employees had determined that Trump's tweets were not in violation of Twitter policy, Vijaya Gadde, it's always Vijaya, isn't it? Twitter's head of legal policy and trust asked whether it could, in fact, be coded incitement to further violence. These people are evil. They knew it. They knew Trump did nothing wrong, but they wanted political interference, and so they did. Vijaya says, the biggest question is whether a tweet like this one this morning from Trump, which isn't a rule violation on its face, is being used as coded incitement to further violence. If you have any context or insight we should consider, I'm all ears. This is the semantic game of an evil person. She is saying here, justify it to me. And she continues, e.g., use of the term American patriots, and they will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. A redacted individual says this is an interesting question. I'm going to speak with my team ASAP to see if we can run a quick survey to get reactions to the language contained in the tweet and get back to you. Vijaya says, I'm not sure I would rely on a survey. I worry about how that would be perceived externally. It's very clear what Vijaya is saying. She's saying, I understand you've said there's no rule violation, but seems coded to me. American patriots better not survey anyone if you get my drift. A few minutes later, Twitter employees on the scaled enforcement team suggested that Trump's tweet may have violated Twitter's glorification of violence policy if you interpreted the phrase American patriots to refer to the rioters. They had already determined American patriots referred to 75 million voters. He literally said that. There weren't 75 million people in D.C. But here they go. Team, Scale is asking if we would consider Trump's tweet for glorification of violence. If we consider American patriots to refer to the rioters, they have a point. From my point of view, team, my laptop is frozen, blah, blah, blah. Scale has said they understand our position, but will continue to push their GOV assessment with leadership. They see it that he is the leader of a violent extremist group who is glorifying the group and its recent actions. Do you think we should square off GOV and the DJT assessment, or would it be helpful at this point? Annika responds blank. I think it would be helpful to a redacted person. I think it would be helpful to maybe have a write-up on what a violation assessment could look like. Barry Weiss says, things escalate from here. Members of that team came to view him as the leader of a terror group responsible for violence and deaths comparable to the Christchurch shooter or even Hitler. And on the basis and on that totality of his tweets, he should be deplatformed. That's right. Yoel Roth, who called Donald Trump a Nazi and said there's Nazis in the White House. You have it right there. They knew he didn't break any rules. Vijaya intervened and basically said, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We know he did. Let's take a look at this. This is the official announcement. January 8th, 2021 from Twitter, as per the permanent suspension of Donald Trump. This was cleverly crafted. I would assume a team of high-powered lawyers sat down, probably internal counsel, to determine exactly the wording they needed to use to remove Donald Trump and avoid serious lawsuits. They wrote, after close review of recent tweets from the Donald Trump account and the context around them, specifically how they are being received and interpreted on and off Twitter, we have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement to violence. Now hold your horses there, my friends. First, they mention how other people are interpreting them, not what was actually said. They're also saying the risk of further incitement. They did not say that Trump incited anyone. Why? Because internally they know he didn't. And if they said he did, Donald Trump could sue for defamation and have, in discovered actual malice. They say in the context of horrific events this week, we made it clear on Wednesday that additional violations of the rules would potentially result in this very course of action. Our public interest framework exists to enable the public to hear from elected officials and world leaders directly. It is built upon a principle that the people have a right to hold power to account in the open. Full stop. You see what they said here? They said additional violations of the Twitter rules. They did not say Trump violated any rules. They did not say he incited anyone to violence. That way, Trump has no real legal recourse in terms of their speech. It's not defamation if you don't accuse him of doing anything. They say, however, we made it clear going back years that these accounts are not above our rules entirely and cannot use Twitter to incite violence, among other things. You see what they did there once again. This is very important to break down the legal language here. These accounts cannot be used to incite violence. Again, they did not say Trump did, but they are trying to trick you using assumptive language to make you believe they are saying outright Trump did incite to violence. This is evil. They are manipulating the ignorant with assumptive language. They say we will continue to be transparent around our policies, and that one is an outright lie. Below is a comprehensive analysis. They say based on these criteria, they believe that Donald Trump is glorifying. And they do go on to say there is some potential. They say glorification of violence. Trump's statement that he will not be attending the inauguration is being received by a number of his supporters as further confirmation the election was not legitimate and is seen as him disavowing the previous claim made in two tweets by his deputy chief of staff, Dan Scavino. What? Trump was like, hey, I won't be there, just so you know. Well, he's basically saying the election is this, that, or otherwise. What? No, he didn't. Now that one's a stretch, and we all saw it. The second tweet may also serve as encouragement to those potentially considering violent acts. The inauguration would be a safe target, as he will not be attending. This is insane. All he said was, I won't be there. And they're saying, aha, that was a signal to his supporters to attack. What? These people are crackpot conspiracy theorists is what they are. The use of the words American patriots to describe some of his supporters is also being interpreted as support for those committing violent acts at the Capitol. 75 million people is not some. It's all of his supporters. All of them. Every single one. The mention of his supporters having a giant voice, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. Plans for future armed protests have already begun proliferating on and off Twitter, including a proposed secondary attack on the Capitol. It's funny. When Antifa was organizing violence, they didn't take the tweets down. I had to call them out on Rogan and show them, and they didn't take the tweets down. At the end, they said, why don't you tell us what the tweet was? And I'm like, I'm not here to give you people's names so you can ban them. I'm here to point out that you're not banning these people, that you're lying. Now we have this. Barry Weiss says multiple tweets have quoted the banality of evil, suggesting that people implementing our policies are like Nazis following orders, relays Yoel Roth to a colleague. You see the game they're playing. How they've gone from, Trump didn't break any rules. He's just telling people he won't be there, and he's calling his supporters patriots. They turned that into, actually, he's talking about the rioters. Actually, he's telling them to attack. And therefore, if we don't ban them, then the employees of Twitter are Nazis. That is the level of derangement and manipulation that exists within this company. Oh boy, it goes on. 1 hour later, Twitter announces Trump's permanent suspension due to the risk of further incitement to violence. Many at Twitter were ecstatic, cheering, celebrating. Big props to whoever in trust and safety is sitting there whack-a-moling these Trump accounts. The next day, employees expressed eagerness to tackle medical misinformation as soon as possible. Well, that's right. The game has changed. We can shut down anyone if we can shut down a president. Barry Weiss says, for the longest time, Twitter's stance was that we aren't the arbiter of truth, wrote another employee, which I respected but never gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling. But Twitter's COO, Parag Agrawal, who would later succeed Dorsey as CEO, told head of security Mudge Zatko, he's the whistleblower, by the way, I think a few of us should brainstorm the ripple effects of Trump's ban. Centralized content moderation, IMO, has reached a breaking point now. Outside the U.S., Twitter's decision to ban Trump raised alarms, including with French President Emmanuel Macron, German Prime Minister Angela Merkel, and Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Macron told an audience he didn't want to live in a democracy where the key decisions were made by private players. I want to be decided by a law voted by your representative or by regulation, governance, democratically discussed and approved by democratic leaders. Merkel's spokesperson called Twitter's decision to ban Trump from its platform problematic and added that the freedom of opinion is of elementary significance. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny criticized the ban as an unacceptable act of censorship. Now that's interesting. Barry says, ultimately, the concerns about Twitter's efforts to censor news about Hunter Biden's laptop, blacklist disfavored views, and ban a president aren't about the past choices of executives in a social media company. They're about the power of a handful of people at a private company to influence the public discourse and democracy. She says this was reported by Schellenberger, Isaac Grafstein, Snoozy Weiss, Olivia Reingold, Peter Savodnik, Nellie Bolas, and they say follow our work on Twitter at the FP. Now there's more I want to highlight here. A few things, notably this. I tweeted this earlier today. The Twitter files reveal that high-profile accounts required manual escalation for suspension. Elon Musk, please release the Twitter files pertaining to the banning of James Lindsay at Conceptual James and the word groomer. Considering what we've seen from Yoel Roth, I think it is of utmost importance we learn exactly what they were saying about all of this. And I've been requested to highlight this. Now, look, I'm no lawyer. I'm no prosecutor. I am no public official. I don't know how this would apply to anybody. But someone said this to me, and we read it on IRL for a little bit. And I want to read it and then just give you a little bit of my thoughts on what's going on, then go through some of these super chats. 18 U.S. Code 242, Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. It says, whoever, under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom, willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or laws of this country, or to different punishments, pains, and penalties on account of such a person being an alien, or by reason of his color or race, than are prescribed for the punishment of citizens, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And if bodily injury result from the acts committed in violation, blah, 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 you get the point. Now, the reason why I think this may be a bit silly to highlight is you can argue that calling a protest an unlawful assembly would violate this law. But I do think that at a certain point, you have to ask yourself whether or not this law is being directly violated. Of course, not by employees of a private company, but by the law enforcement agents that colluded with Twitter and Facebook to suppress the speech, the legal speech of individuals. The law enforcement agents who went to Twitter and said, hey, be on the lookout for this. Now, they'll argue, we didn't break any laws. But that's not how the law works. You know, a lot of people have this movie view, this movie-esque vision of how the law works. And they'll say, well, you know, those FBI agents who met with Twitter never told them to ban Trump, so that means they didn't break the law. Do you think a judge interprets things that way? Rats! He didn't actually traffic in the drugs because he had them on a kite and he wasn't actually carrying the drugs. And the law says whoever carries, possesses, or otherwise, man, they got us. Yeah, right. Judges interpret. So if you can prove that some law enforcement agent went to Twitter and said, we don't think this content should be allowed, you may see it coming. Just so you know, our opinion is that it should be removed. Yeah, we get it. You are acting in collusion with private companies to deprive someone of their rights. Granted, again, I don't know to what extent this law would actually apply. Someone just sent it to me and said that we should read it and talk about it. So, okay. I want you to see this. Lori Mills for CA Assembly 42. She wrote, this evil tweet was allowed to stay while this one was not, referencing the tweet from the former Prime Minister of Malaysia calling for death. Donald Trump on January 6th said, I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. So hold on there a minute. You can, of course, try to make the claim that, Donald Trump was good, bad, whatever you want to say about him. You can try to argue, if in a vacuum, that his tweets on January 8th were incitement. I think that's ridiculous and your argument is garbage, but there is no way you can argue that when he tweeted this and you apply that context. Vijaya Gadde is an evil person. She lied to try and justify some kind of way to ban Trump. Why? Because they want to stop Trump. They want to gut and destroy this country. As George Carlin said, and I highlighted in a previous segment, there doesn't need to be a conspiracy when they all know what's good for themselves. They'll go to the same schools, they're friends with the same people. In context, the January 8th tweets can never be interpreted as to glorify violence. Why? Because Trump said, we are the party of law and order. We respect the law and our great men and women in blue. So how could you claim that anything he said after that fact was secretly coded glorification of violence when he literally denounced it? Because they're lying. Because they lie. Well, now we have the receipts. It will be interesting to see where this goes. I will add, thank you for putting the story out on a Monday, because this one, I think, is the biggest. I'll tell you why I think it's the biggest. As I stated early on, and just quickly to reiterate, we knew the government was colluding for some time. We had a lawsuit out of California. I think it was California, maybe Colorado or Arizona. But we knew that Twitter had emails with law enforcement. And that was the start of it. We then saw the lawsuit out of Missouri, where we actually got many of these emails. We knew actually then, thanks to, I think it's Gateway Pundit, and I think it's Eric Schmidt, among many others, that was the hard evidence. When the Twitter files dropped and we saw this, it's like, okay, here's hard receipts. Here's documentation. That's good. But with these internal communications, we now know, despite their political biases, they had no justification for banning Donald Trump. They knew they had no justification, and they lied to desperately try and justify it. You can see the sophistry in real time, the hard evidence. Everything we've been saying about bias against conservatives, biased against Trump, fake suspensions, and manipulation of the platform, it is laid out right there in front of you, plain to see. We can speculate, and we quote unquote know they're doing it because we're not morons, but now you have the receipts. So I have to wonder, does this mean we may see lawsuits, maybe a class action? When you sign up for Twitter, you agree to certain terms. Twitter says they won't ban you unless you break the rules. We now know that Twitter was actively banning people who didn't break the rules, and they were lying about it. So what does that ultimately mean? Well, let me know what you think. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with your friends. The next show is going to be up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. But in this special live version, a segment of the show, I will read just some of your super chats. There actually aren't that many, so I'll just read through some. And I appreciate everybody who supported the segments here. And I just want to say, as I'm here, I could use your thoughts and prayers for Mr. Bocus. He is our cat. He's on the website. He is very sick. His prognosis is poor. He's receiving care from top vets, and we're going to try and make sure that we can get him all the help that he needs to the best of our abilities. He was a gutter kitty, so he has underdeveloped kidneys, meaning that eventually his blood cells, he stopped producing enough blood cells as he was using, and so he's getting weaker and weaker, and we didn't see any symptoms until it was very, very bad. But would appreciate your support. All right, let's see what we got here. Murph Try says, Tim, doesn't Trump or a PAC have a class action lawsuit with Twitter? How would any of the dumps affect the suit? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but what I would speculate that now that we can see the internal communications, it's much more likely to get past a motion to dismiss. If you made a claim like they accused me of saying or doing this, or they breached the contract in this way, they could say there's no evidence to support this. We dismiss it. And how do you prove it? A judge is going to be like, you have no reason to say this thing is happening just because you speculate. Well, now we got receipts. Now you can go to a judge and be like, look at this. They outright said Trump broke no rules. And then you can see, Your Honor, they desperately try to justify why and how it may be a rule violation, despite the fact the previous tweet, he denounces violence. I think a reasonable judge is going to be like, yeah, they're lying. But maybe you'll get a partisan judge. So who knows? All right. Alec 30 says the most armed population in the world had an in-armed insurrection. Yeah, right. Exactly. That's exactly. Classy Caribou says Coffeefy brand Coffeefy. Yes, I actually have some samples from Jeremy's coffee brand coffee. It's really, really good stuff. Shout out to the Courting. His coffee's legit. We are also launching our own coffee brand. And it's because we are launching a physical cafe. And so as part of that, we are going to have our own branded coffee and physical locations. So look, I know a lot of people do the coffee stuff. I don't want to get into that, but we did want to open a cafe for a variety of reasons. For our physical location as a hangout, here's the easiest thing. A sandwich shop is tough. A burger joint is hard. Pizza is rough. Coffee, relatively easy to open a coffee shop with the bare bones. We serve coffee, espresso. We got a variety of milks and all that stuff. But we needed coffee to do it. So I said, all right, let's go for it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be launching our own coffee brand, and we'll be sponsoring that. We'll have a physical location that y'all will find out about once we get it set up, which hopefully will be soon. Waffle Sensei says, is it not treasonous conspiracy against the president of the United States? What if it was another country controlling a tech platform, talking like this and then subverting that leader's ability to speak, ultimately costing him the election? Yeah, they censored the Hunter Biden laptop too. It was more than just banning Trump. This whole thing, it's crazy. Claybomb says censorship is the biggest threat to Americans' individual rights in U.S. history. Twitter files is in the top 3 biggest scandals in modern U.S. history. Hear, hear. All right. Joseph Henson says, I love how Tim makes me feel like eating some chocolate-covered espresso beans. Well, that's right. Chocolate-covered espresso beans are, in fact, amazing. What we're doing with our coffee is just, I think we're going to have like 5. We're going to have French roast, Colombian. Oh, no, I think we might have 4. French roast, Colombian, breakfast blend, and a special ultra dark blend, which I'm really excited for because that's the one that I like. It's just like really dark. And it's, as I stated, Joe Ramirez says coffee brand coffee is for groomers. Hey, that's not okay. It is not. But thanks for your money anyway. No, shout out to Coffee Brand Coffee. Legit. I've been talking with Jeremy quite a bit about it. So we'll see how things go. 117 says, hey, Tim, finally caught you live. I have a friend who thinks Elon is faking all of this and is bribing people not to not sue him. Any tips as to show him how that's impossible and improbable? Bribing people not to sue him? Who would sue? Is it because he got Twitter and now he's liable for all the lawsuits? I'll tell you this, man. Maybe that was the reason he decided not to buy Twitter. Trump announced he's going to buy the platform. They agree to it. Then someone goes to him and says, so what? Once you own it, all those lawsuits are going to be coming after you? And he went, oh crap. Because it's, so how does that work? Elon's the new owner of Twitter. Twitter's the company that broke contract and did all these things. Is Elon going to be liable for all that? Maybe Elon said, okay, I have to buy it. The only way past these lawsuits is to get them all dismissed as I'm calling these things out. I'm new management. I did not do these things and we're rectifying them all. Perhaps. Peckerwood says Trump might be getting some of Elon's $44 billion. I don't think so. Ice Castle says YouTube did this, Tim, too. No difference in the malingering of accounts. Maligning of accounts, you mean? It says malingering. Everybody knows Pool's number should be beyond the blue. What does that mean? YouTube did this too, Tim. I know that YouTube is suppressing and censoring stuff outright. Eek the Cat says, just here to shout out Chicken City. Shout out Chicken City. All right, let's grab a couple more super chats. Let's see what we got here. I'm not your buddy guy says, how is this anything else but a coup against the Trump administration? Treason for all, and yes, armed men were part of this coup. Fed agents are armed. Not treason, it's sedition. Treason would be aiding and abetting a foreign adversary. So if they were actively supporting, I don't know, Ukraine maybe, you can argue it was treason. But we weren't, actually, no, we're not enemies. It would have to be China. An adversarial nation, but we're not at war with China, so treason is hard to justify. Sedition, however. Sedition is basically just trying to subvert and destroy the government. Through illegal means and conspiracy. Otto says old Twitter was evil. You betcha. Let's see, what do we got here? Eric Burton says, Tim, this thread proves that Twitter employees perjured themselves in the January 6 hearings. Another excellent point. As they noted with that Annika woman, when she went to this January 6 hearing and said, oh, I was warning them, yet behind the scenes, she's like, no rules were broken, move on. They were just showboating. Eek the Cat says, for Mr. Kitty. Thank you. It's expensive, man. So Justin says, Tim, praying for Bocus. I know you don't need the money, dude, but I love animals. Feel free to pass it on. I'm rooting for Kitty Cat. Animals are too good for us. So Mr. Bocus was a little lethargic, but I didn't notice anything too crazy. And we brought him to the vet. And they said that they told me he was mostly fine. They were like, make sure he doesn't eat dog food or something. The issue is that we didn't do full blood work. So over the next month or so, he was very thirsty. He was peeing a lot. And we noticed that as well. And I said, okay, we got to send him to the vet. And then it was just on Friday night, he came over. He walked down to where I was. And because, he goes outside. Only when it's warm out. And, sometimes it does. And then we thought he was going to leave, but then we noticed that he just laid down. And we were like, oh, so we're going to pick him up and bring him back to the house. And when we brought him in, he just slumped down and just fell straight his face to the floor. And I was immediately like, okay, it's been too much. We brought him to the vet. They said he was fine. We thought maybe he was constipated or whatever. He went to the vet and they said his red blood cells were dangerously low. And this is what the annoying thing is. They said to us, maybe you should just bring him back and spend time with him. And I said, what? Like, that's it. There's nothing we can do. Well, it turns out there were things that could be done. We went to a bigger hospital, an ER. He got 2 blood transfusions. His blood cell count improved from the blood transfusions. He was put on IVs. They say that he's spry. He's he's doing well. His prognosis is still very poor because it seems like his kidneys aren't working. He's not producing enough red blood cells. There's a hormone that needs to be released. So then they said, look, we gave him the blood transfusions. We got him antibiotics, but it's not looking good. We'll give you some updates. Now we're learning, and this is really annoying, there's even stem cell options. Here's what I think. I think the issue is that it's very expensive. It's already been like $6,000 for these treatments. Everything we've done for him so far, I think it's been like $5,000. But they wanted a down payment to guarantee certain coverage, so we had to pay $6,000. And they keep telling us, I'm sorry. And then we keep pushing, saying there's nothing that can be done, nothing. And they're like, well, there is a hormone treatment that will replace the kidney hormones. And I'm like, so we can just put him on medication? Like, yeah. Like, why didn't you tell us that? I think they just assume most people would let their pets die and most people can't afford it, which I understand. But that's the frustrating thing to me. And now I'm doing my research, and these hospitals, these higher-end hospitals offer stem cell treatments. Granted, $2,000 to $4,000 per treatment. And for a cat, I get it. Most people won't do it. And you might need a series of them. So that's the tough thing. Do you spend $10,000 to try and save your cat? But we love Mr. Bokus. He is our friend. And if I can, I'm not going to just let him die. So we will see what we have to do. The stem cell treatment can restore kidney function, and he can live a much longer life. They think it may be genetic. He's got underdeveloped kidneys, and he was an outdoor cat, and he may be inbred. So it is what it is. We gave him a good life. We did the best that he could. So thank you for listening to me ramble on about Mr. Bokus and how much it means to me, because I am deeply worried about him. If you go to timcast.com and click join us, you will see that Mr. Bokus is our center square talent for this company. He's appeared in multiple thumbnails. He's appeared behind me during segments. Alex Stein held him in the thumbnail. We very much deeply care for Mr. Bokus. And I'm worried right now because he's currently at the ER, and I don't like him being there for now, since Friday. I don't want to just leave him there. And so this morning I was considering not working and just going to be there and just wait to figure out what they could do for him. We called in the morning and they said he's doing well. He's eating. He's drinking. His blood cell count has improved. So we're going to get him to internal medicine and see what the options are. And I said, okay, so long as he's doing well, I'm not going to run out the door and rush and abandon everything for him. But if they call me up and they say that he's taking a turn, I'm gonna be there with Mr. Bokus, and there will be no show. I'm not going to. I thought about this morning because I really want to do this work. I really, really believe in just getting the work done, being there, reporting on the news, commenting on the news, and all of that stuff. And as I was getting ready, I thought to myself, there will be no point in my life moving forward where I look back on this day and say, I'm so glad I talked about Elon Musk when I knew that my cat was dying. They told me that he's doing all right, so I'm not going to drop everything and abandon my responsibilities because I have a cat. But I will say, if they call me up and say that it's taking a turn and we're not sure we're going to be able to save him, then yes. Because I will tell you, for any pet, for any family member, more importantly, but for any creature that I love, there will never be a time in my life where I will look back on this day and say, I'm so grateful that I did not go and say goodbye to my pet. That'll never happen. So that was the extended ending, I suppose. Just so you all know, I really do appreciate everybody. Thank you all so much for your support and hanging out. Next segment will be tonight at 8 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. We got more coming. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.